Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Real and Raw podcast. And yeah, this is also the first episode of the new season. I was on a little summer break, and now I'm so excited and happy to be back here with you, sharing my own story, and then, as always, inviting also some beautiful, inspiring women to share their own story and their own medicine. So, yeah, I wanted to use this first episode to kind of like share a little bit what has been alive for me um, in these last 3 months and, things that have happened and revelations and epiphanies I've had and the own healing I was going through in these last few months. And it has been wow, so much has been going on in these last few months. And there's one particular topic that I would really like to share with you. And really is about, the story that I shared in a previous episode, where I was getting real and raw with my own story, sharing my own past story. And yeah, just some very, very healing revelations I've had in this last few months. And so yeah, I want to really share with you about what has been going on. And so as you know, if you have listened to that episode, or if you have been following me, if you know me personally, or also if you have visited my website, I've been always very open about my own story, um, about what has happened in my past relationship that has been very abusive, emotionally abusive, and how that actually was the catalyst for me to go onto this deep, deep healing journey, for actually bringing me bringing me back to myself. And so, when I look back, I really see that as one of the biggest blessings of my life, because it really has brought me and made me the woman I am today. And so for that, I'm forever grateful. And what I've actually noticed in these past few weeks, even, when I used to talk about that relationship, I could still feel that I was still very much like the story was still very emotionally charged for me. I was still very much like kind of like attached to the story of what happened and how it happened and all of that. And what I've realized is that I was still somehow trying to keep that story alive, because that's what my story is, right? So I was trying to hold on to that and attach to that story. But I just needed to realize, like, as long as I do that, there cannot actually be a real healing, and I cannot actually ever completely and fully let go of that. And so what really shifted for me was a big, like a real big shift in my mindset, was realizing that the story happened, that is part of my life. I will never forget about what happened. It simply is part of my life. It's how and what shaped me. But what shifted is that it no longer affects me, like my future decisions. It no longer affects this present moment. Whereas before I could notice, or I realized that it actually still did, that I was still so caught up in that, so I was still trying to get something out of that story. But now I can totally see that no, like it really feels like there has been this very clear healing, this clear um cutting of the energetics that were still intact. And so really just noticing that, yes, this will always be part of my life. It's just simply who I am. And I cannot delete that. I cannot make it unhappen it because it did happen. And so that's good. Perfect. It just brought me to where I am today. But today I am no longer conditioned by what happened. And so I really want to get deeper into how I could really get into that deeper healing. And for me, like what has become very clear in this last few years, especially since I really started to work more in depth with the energetics, and especially since I started doing womb work, where I could really see how these energetic entanglements and chords, how they really work. And so really becoming a knowledge about that, and like really going into depth with that, with the energetics, and healing from that. So what I've noticed more and more is that we can not only just heal physically, like, and I don't mean like I'm not talking about somatically, like let me get this clear, like when we, for example, like in a relationship, right, when we break up physically with a person, that does not mean that we're actually fully broken up with that person, because energetically, as long as we keep these energetic cords intact, we're still connected, and we are still receiving or giving, like we're still draining or receiving energy from that other person. So there's still that energetic, like kind of like a, yeah, like I know it sounds, but it is what it feels like for me, at least sometimes, like tentacles, like wanting to go into the other person's energetic field and really get something out of it. And also knowing that the other person is doing the same with you, is trying to get something out of you. So unless these chords are like really energetically clear, and and there it's like it's a holistic process. It's not just, okay, I'm just going to cut these cords and then all is good. No, it's like a deep process. It's deep inner work. But what I have noticed for me is that as long as we do not go into the energetics, that can still stay intact. And so of course, like we need the time that we need to heal. We need that process, like it's not something that from one day to another we can just heal. No, it takes time. It's like by maturing, it's by really going into a deep healing journey, and like, you know, also allowing ourselves to take time, like not being so focused and like it has to happen overnight, like really giving ourselves that time and be patient and compassionate with ourselves. So again, like where I want to go into is like to really share the importance of doing deep energetic work as well. And like what happened for me in these last few months, throughout the summer, I received this very clear message as I was meditating one morning, and I was meditating here in the space, in the place where I live, and it became so clear to me that there are still parts of me. There's energies that are still draining me, that I cannot fully and completely be here in this space. There's still parts of my past that are holding me back. And so what I came to see and realize was that there's a part of me, or there was a part of me, that was like frozen in the past. So there was this old part of me, that old me, that got frozen in the past as that traumatic experience happened. And she just got frozen there. And so that really came, I got to see that through some events that happened that kind of triggered um my past. And I really was honest. I was like, okay, let's look at this and see how does that affect me? What is happening? What is still there that wants to be looked at? And that's what came out for me, is that there's still a part of me that is frozen in the past. And that part still believed that he's going to come back and that actually we're still in a relationship. And so I could totally see where there was this incongruence in like me being here, like physically, intellectually knowing this is what's happening, but energetically, parts of my soul were still in that past, really like reliving that situation over and over and over again. And so that was really what was holding me back from fully cutting and from fully being here, wholly being here wholly as myself and living life here wholly. And so there were also some metaphors, like some signs that came up that really just proved me that I am losing life force energy in my past. And so there was like things came up that it was that I had to go back to Madrid. Like I had to go there to um take care of some business that I really needed to take care of. And for me, that that business, quote unquote, really was just simply a metaphor for what was happening, that I was losing life force energy. And so when I realized that, I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. And then it became also more and more clear because there was still this part of me that actually um was in that old relationship still. So I knew that I had to go to Madrid anyways to take care of that, of some administrational stuff. And at the same time, I knew that I had to go back physically to the places that I've been to physically reclaim parts of me, you know, and I've done so much soul retrieval. Um, on my own before, like energetically, and especially since I have noticed that there is this part of me that has been still frozen in the past, and I was able to reclaim quite a big part, but I knew that that wasn't enough, that I needed to be physically in that place and reclaim that part, like really inviting her back and letting her know that it's safe to come back, and also like really letting her know what's happening, right? And so I think what really was the most difficult part for me was to really see things for what they are, the reality. And that's what I needed then at that time, to really see, okay, let's be honest, like what is, and the reality is that I am here, he is not here. And like, you know, letting that part of me know that that is not what's happening, right? This is just like a part of me that wish for that to still happen, right? But it was not the reality. So like really bringing her back out of that frozen state and like re 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 make her alive again, right? And see, okay, no, this is the reality of life. This is where I am, and this is where you need to be, or like this is where you belong, right? So yeah, to really realize and like, yeah, be honest with myself, or like calling things for what they are, seeing things for what they are. And so yeah, I went to Madrid, and it was literally like such a healing trip that I had. It was so healing on so many levels. First of all, what I had noticed also was that, you know, I didn't go to Madrid for like 3 years, and that really affected me in these last few years. I was like, oh, why am I cannot go? Really want to go. And now, or once I got there, I could see why I wasn't supposed to go there for so long. Because once I got there, I could see Madrid from the place of where I am now, and I could totally see that it has served me so much in my past at that time, but it no longer serves me now. And I guess that if I would have gone before, I would have still gone with that attachment, like, oh yeah, Madrid, and it's my home, and I could not fully um or go with like a more objective um view, but I would have gone with like this attachment, right? And so really realizing that, wow, it has given me so much over the last few years when I used to live there, but it no longer is what I need or what I desire in my life right now. So that was already like a huge revelation. It was like, oh wow, yes, this is it. Like, thank you. Thank you for everything, but it no longer belongs to me in this present moment. And so I did go to different places, the places that I worked, or you know, where I used to live, and really like I went very intentionally to every place. I went to the park I used to go to where I used to teach yoga. I went to the yoga studio I used to teach yoga, and like went very consciously and very aware. And as I was there, I was always like reclaiming back these missing parts of me that were still there, like holding on to that beautiful story. And it was a very emotional. It was very, very, very emotional, but it was so necessary. And I then went to that little city that I used to live with my ex-boyfriend. And I went there. I went to the building where we used to live, where that the biggest part of that um soul part of mine was still there, frozen, right? And I went there very intentionally, took the whole day to just go to that city, and I was standing in front of the building, and yeah, very, very intentionally called her back. And it was quite interesting because there were memories that came up that I have somehow like forgotten or I didn't remember. And it was just like I was reliving some of the memories that had happened. And I could just feel all the pain that my past self was feeling. I felt so much pain. And so I was just there with her, you know, allowing her to feel that pain, allowing her to grieve all that she needed to grieve. And then very, very intentionally and lovingly let her know that it's safe to come back, and she did. She did come back to me, and I could feel that energy like shifting. I could feel her coming back into my body, and yeah, it was like really this energetic shift that I could feel happen. And and I was like, yeah, and now it's good. Like I was like, always like tuning into, feeling into, do I need to stay more time? Is it enough? Can I go now? And it was at the moment it was very clear, okay, now it's time to go. Because if you stay, it's still like there's still that attachment. And so I was like, okay, now it's time. Thank you. Thank you for showing me everything that I needed to see. And thank you for coming back. And so, yeah, I left the place and yeah, and could feel that parts of me were returning. And what was also very interesting, the sensations I had actually when I did arrive in that city. I got off the train and I walked into that city, and a little town, and every sensation, all of the feelings that I used to always feel when I was living there came up right away. It was like literally as if I was back in that moment. Like every sensation, every feeling came back up, and it was like, wow, I could remember how I used to feel back in the days when I was still living there. The only difference was that this time I could kind of like I knew what these feelings meant. Meant with that, like I have lived that. Like I know what that these sensations in my body mean, which I didn't know before. And so what was very interesting was that it was this sensation of it did not feel good. And so I recalled that I had that feeling all the time as I was there. But back in the days, I had no idea what that meant. Deep inside, I always knew it doesn't feel good, but I was trying, like I was, talking myself into something. And so it's so beautiful to actually relive all the sensations and see, wow, now I know what that means in my body. Like it doesn't feel good. And so, yeah, it was just so beautiful to recognize that and to realize what, first of all, how more in tune I got with my body, and also like to see how I have actually betrayed myself, dishonored myself. And so that was very revealing. That was very, very, yeah, quite hard to accept as well, but it was very healing. And so yeah, that trip to Madrid was really like, okay, it really feels like this new chapter. Like, enough of that. It really is me entering a new chapter, a new cycle. And what was so beautiful also, like actually the day before I traveled to Madrid, I got on my period, and I was like, every time, like the first day of my period is sacred for me. I just go into my cave. I move through the sensations, and I just really, go into whatever wants to be seen, and give that space. And so that day it became so very, very clear for me, like this is the time for me to let go, like let go of something big, like really stepping into this new cycle, and like stepping into that new portal of a new version of me that is no longer like, because it felt heavy that I was always still holding on to that past, and it did not feel good. Like it didn't give me anything actually. And so it was so liberating. Like, oh yeah, now I can step into this new portal, into this new chapter of my life where I am actually fully here. Like all my energies can be here. And from that space, I can open up and receive. And so that was just so beautiful and symbolic that I was on my period, right? The day before I got on my period, and then I went there, and it was this whole cycle of releasing, of letting go. And when I came back home, I could feel like, yes, now I can, it totally, like the energy feels different. When I think about that past, it no longer has the same energy as it had before. Before it was still like sticky. And now I can feel that it has clear. And also because I was like so ready to fully commit to being here in Switzerland, to fully being here. Like I didn't want to be anywhere else. Like I wanted to fully be here and to be of service here, like what I've been called to do here. And so really like gathering all that energy and reclaiming it to being fully of service here to the women here in this community. And I could totally feel that shift. It was just so beautiful to to literally feel it. And so it was quite interesting when I realized that for me, it kind of feels like that. That even though, like physically, my ex-boyfriend and me, we have not been together for like for 7.5 years. Yeah. But to actually see that in a way, we have still been in that connection only until like if like that connection has only been cut a few months ago. And for me, what's really important because I I cannot like go into something when I still notice that there is still this entanglement. It doesn't feel clear and it doesn't feel, it's still sticky. And so I knew that I needed to clear that first, like to unclog all these tubes that were actually preventing me from flowing freely. And so now I can totally feel that the energy flows differently. And I also know that I could not have been ready to invite another man before. Yes, there has been my own, attachment to that story still and everything. I would have not been fully able to open up and to commit the way I actually want to commit because I also what I've come to realize is that I want to invite that relationship. I want to invite a man, but that it comes from a real space of like a full commitment, of full openness, where there are no entanglements in the back, where there's no stickiness still from past relationships. But like I wanted to fully be there and open and present for whatever comes. And so I could notice that that's why obviously it never happened because there was still that stickiness. And what was very interesting though, because a few months ago, like actually a month ago or so, I did meet a man and I was like, oh wow, that was fast now. And what I then came to realize just the other day when I had to be really honest with myself and with him to tell him that it's not what I'm looking for, that I do not feel that connection. And I was like going into a whole story like, oh, this is it now. No, it's not. And like being super confused, but like just being honest with myself and saying, no, this is not it. And realizing that in a way I was still like and it's beautiful because now I can see it and now I'm like, oh wow, I needed that man to come into my life so I could see where I was actually still like what I was still holding on to from my ex-boyfriend energetically. Yeah, I just cut that now, but I was afraid even like just at the moment I met him, I was like, oh, I'm afraid that I'm going to fill that void again with someone else. And it actually indeed it was what happened. So it was so good to see, to realize that and to be aware of that, where actually, even though it has been just, even though no, it has been like 7 years that we have not been together, but energetically, I was still trying to get something from him. And he obviously from me, like with my ex-boyfriend. So now that I have cut that, and obviously I could see now where there's still this wound within me that is looking for that is actually wanting to be filled. And and so it was humbling to realize that in this last month with this other man, where I was actually just trying to fill that, but not being able to give back. And so I had to be very honest with myself and with him. And I had to be honest with myself also, like letting me know that it's okay. I'm going to be okay if I don't have that, like letting go of that and being honest and cutting that where it needs to be cut so that I can just be kind of like with that emptiness, that I can actually allow myself to dwell in that big void of that I actually always tried to fill. And so it really is an invitation for me to dig deeper and see, okay, what is it actually that I want to kind of like compensate and fill from the outside, and that that I'm actually not really giving myself, or that is still the wound that is still trying to get something, that it comes from a place of neediness, it comes from a place of lack. And so it really is that big, beautiful invitation for me to have an honest look at that, and yeah, and reparent that part of me that wants that attention, that wants that affection and attention that comes from a place of neediness. And so yeah, it's gonna be a beautiful journey now ahead to really go into that and give myself all of that. And I know that eventually that man will come, and there where I know that now this I can fully open up, and it doesn't come anywhere from a place of neediness. And if I'm aware of that, and it's okay, and I can give that to myself, but that I know that that basically the first relationship I want to have is first and foremost to the divine and to myself, and from that space inviting another man, well, another person and a man into my life. So yeah, this has been quite the revelations for me over these last few months. It really feels like a whole shift, a whole new chapter. And yeah, I'm just very excited to see how it keeps on evolving, and yeah, how things are moving in what direction. And again, there, like, I just let it go. I have no expectations, and I see now what is still there, what was still holding on to, first of all, that old relationship, and then yeah, what it is actually that deep inside I actually desire very, very deeply, and that has probably not been looked at yet. That is a deeper wound that still needs some tending. And I'm excited about that, of like really going into that space and giving myself all the love, attention, and care that I need. And at the same time just being open, and yeah, yeah, letting the magic unfolds in my life. Mm. So yeah, this is what has been a life for me in these last few months. It's been quite intense, very beautiful, and so I'm so excited now to be back and sharing my story, and also other women's stories here on this podcast. And yeah, so hmm, yeah, this is what I wanted to share about my story, and again, kind of like wrapping up or like summarizing it. Um, for me, the importance is that is like to doing the deep energetic work, and really being aware of those entanglements, the energetics behind things, and yeah, to really, getting more sensitive to these energies, and that requires just a lot of self-inquiry, a lot of deep work to really attune, like being more attuned to all our sensations, to all of our um the signs our body is giving us, right? So that we can really kind of like read ourselves much easier. And yeah, so So this is really one of the biggest takeaways, even though I've known it for the last 2 years, but it's really like realizing and knowing when then it is kind of like, okay, now it feels, yeah, now it's gone. Okay, before there's always been, yeah, now it's better, but then it's like, oh well, there's still this big part and like, you know, and again, like this is it, like it is part of my life. It will probably, evolve. It is a work in progress and it will probably come back. Like obviously old things come back up. But I no longer see it now as a something that, oh, because of that. And like, no, no, no. I'm like, I'm here. Like that happens. That is part of who I am today, but it no longer affects, conditions me what's going to happen in the future. Because right now I am fully here. I'm fully aware of what is and what is not. And yeah, just taking it from here, moving forward. So yeah. Thank you so much for listening, for tuning in, and I'll be also very interested to hear about you if you had similar experiences, or if that resonates. If it doesn't, if you have questions, please reach out to me. Also, if you want to actually work more with the energetics and go more into that deeper healing journey, I do offer in-person sessions here in Switzerland, but I also still offer online sessions via Zoom. So you can check out my website. I will link it obviously in the description, and you can go and have a look. And yeah, if you have questions about the sessions, please feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, so yeah, I'm really excited to be back and share. So, yeah, I wish you all a beautiful day and I'll speak soon.